Hello, Nathan here with PixelPipes, and we're going to try something a little different today. Since I have a capture card now, I'm going to, by the way, you're going to see that featured in the next Pixelbox haul episode, so a little bit of a spoiler there, but you know, you've already seen it in action if you've seen my previous video, the mini documentary about the GeForce FX series. But now that I have that, I can do new types of content, and this is one of the things that I wanted to try. This is on my Windows XP rig, my Athlon 64 X2 system. It's got a 4400 plus dual core processor at 2.8 gigahertz, and currently, if you read the title, you'll know that I'm using a GeForce4 Ti4600. And we're just going to play some games and see what it can do. We got different eras of games here and a bunch of other crap littering the desktop. And we're just going to go through and play things. This is not a live stream, obviously. I'm going to be editing through all of the, the dead air moments and just showing you the highlights. Okay, so this is one of the issues that you often run into with Unreal Tournament and the original Unreal is that in 32-bit color, if you don't have the right NVIDIA driver installed, it just runs at like 1 frame per second. And so this is going to be agonizing trying to switch this over to 16-bit color. Alright, actually the far easier way to do that would be to go into the actual INI setup and edit the settings for the graphics to run at 16-bit color. Alright, so let's go windowed mode 16 colors, full screen 16 colors. Go ahead and save that. Then we're going to reload it. One thing about this capture card is that it does not like certain resolutions. If you have it preset on one thing and then it goes into another setting, then it just spazzes out. So obviously the Ti4600 has no problem running this game, and this is again only running at 720 and 16-bit colors because, for some reason, whatever, if you don't have an old enough driver, it really does not like 32-bit color in this game. It just completely stalls the game out. You're getting less than a frame per second, and it's essentially it acts like it's crashed almost. And my skill, by the way, is probably not going to be at its best because I'm playing this directly off of the capture card, and there's a bit of a latency in the input. I'm viewing this through my main computer as it's recording now. This game really is still very good looking. I mean, for a game of its era, it holds up very, very well. And, the Ti4600 is kind of just twiddling its thumbs while running this because it's locked at 60 frames. And, ow. It really just doesn't have much to do in this game. A lot of its hardware is just kind of going to waste. But we can change that. So going into the display settings here, you can see I'm using Forceware 7189. It's what I use for anything from GeForce 3 up to the FX series. And with the performance quality settings, we're going to change anti-aliasing to 4x. We could probably go higher, but I'm not going to bother. And 8x anisotropic filtering. And we're also going to force off vertical sync. Alright, so now we've got anti-aliasing, anisotropic filtering, we've got an unlocked frame rate, and we're going to actually exercise this card at least a little bit. Also have headphones on so we're not getting echo anymore. Oh, this is really stuttery. Yeah, I'm getting some frame pacing issues here. Yeah, so the frame rate's high, but the motion is really juddery. And I wonder if that has anything to do with the lack of VSync. I mean, maybe this engine just doesn't like that. So yeah, let's give that a shot here. Let's switch this back to application controlled. And one last time, we're going to load this game up and see if that improves the smoothness. Yeah, it definitely did. You notice the frame rate's now dipping down occasionally. Of course, that's not helped by the VSync because, you know, there's only so many options for the frame rate to go to. It's stuck at multiples of 60. So basically, it can do 60, it can do 45, it can do 30, or it can do 15 frames, or 20. I skipped one. But yeah, this is an overall pretty smooth experience playing Unreal Tournament. This card is much newer than this game. This game is from 1999. And the card came out in 2002. Alright, so switching these back to application controls, we're going to go back to playing another game. We've got Serious Sam, the Second Encounter. This is running at 1024 by 768. And let's see if I have any saves. So this game is actually a contemporary title for this card, coming out the same year. And it was considered to be a very good-looking game, but it's not very challenging. It's largely just a fixed-function title. It doesn't have a lot of advanced features that the card was touting for the time. I don't know why that door takes so long to open. Ow. Ha! Flamethrower is actually one of the more graphically intensive effects. I mean, it did drop the frame rate down to the 70s, so I guess that's something. Yeah, the input lag and just my overall lack of skill. This is not going to be a great showing of gaming ability, but it's not really about that. It's about showing what these graphics cards can do in various games, just as a playing experience, not just showing graphs and benchmarks. Every good FPS needs to have a good shotgun. Combination of power and a great sound effect. Unfortunately, games like Doom 3 kind of fall short in this regard. See, he just flew backwards. I mean, that was satisfying. Alright. I'm going to save it right here. So in a game like Serious Sam: The Second Encounter, I prefer to have a really high frame rate because the game tends to be a lot more responsive, more than most with a higher frame rate. It tends to get really kind of sluggish feeling with lower frame rates. But nonetheless, let's try a little bit of anti-aliasing at least. Now the GeForce4 cards, they were not very speedy with anti-aliasing, so we'll just have to see what happens here. Okay, so all the settings are maxed out. We're still running the same resolution, 1024 by 768. And we're going to see if it can handle that. Alright, so yeah, we got anti-aliasing running now. It's just 2x, but it seems to be running at a high frame rate still, so good. Alright, let's stick it at 4x now and see if we can cope with that. Alright, so yeah, now the frame rate's cut down drastically to down to the 50s, and I mean, it's still playable, but then again, we're in an enclosed space. Okay. Starting to get a little sluggish now. Down to the 40s, which you can really feel in this game. So this is just on the cusp of what I would call playable in this game, but the Ti4600 is doing an excellent job, and obviously for a game of its own era, it's more than powerful enough to run it, and with the bells and whistles all amped up. So next we're going to move on to a newer game. This one's 1 year older, and it is used in a lot of my benchmarking. Halo. So this is running at 1024 by 768. All the settings are amped up on it. This game is never known to be very well optimized, but yeah, as you can see, the frame rate isn't the worst, but it's not great.
go? Over here. I see him.
But we can tweak it for more performance, because Halo takes advantage of whatever version of pixel shader the hardware supports. So in the case of the Ti4600, it's using pixel shader 1.3. Now we can tweak it by adding use 11 after the shortcut target with a little dash in front. It will actually force the game to use pixel shader 1.1, which is a lot faster and more optimized than any other version of pixel shaders that the game has to offer.
In that structure. Let's check it out.
More of them. Nailed it. Found him over here. Right. Give me an angle. Good one.
But even still, this game is a struggle on this card. I mean, regardless of what you put the settings at, it requires something really powerful. Somewhat ironically, considering the game was built using GeForce 3 level GPU on the original Xbox.
There's another one. You like that?
Another good 2003 era game is Call of Duty.
Man. Let's go. Let's go.
Of course, this game being based on the Quake 3 engine, it's really no sweat for the Ti4600.
Here we're dead. Mortars. Watch your angle. Good job, son. What? Move up. Go, go, go. Coming.
And of course, like Serious Sam and Unreal Tournament, we can go ahead and crank up the AA and AF and go right back into the game.
We gotta cut through these houses. Face up fire. Shift right.
It is getting down to the 30s over here, so the game is capable of pushing this card. You see, you're looking at the fire effects, and that brings it down to the 20s, actually. This is at 1024 by 768. So, of course, the graphics card market was moving very fast in the early 2000s, and 2003 was when you started to see some games that could definitely push the Ti4600. I'm going to turn off AA and AF here and go into the next game. We're going to start looking at 2004. And probably the easiest game to run on this card from that era is Unreal Tournament 2004. And you're going to see my terrible skill on showcase once again.
Play.
Ow. So here we're running at 1280 by 720. And generally speaking, the performance is pretty good. As you can see here in this crowded room, it's getting down to the 40s. And I even saw it briefly in the 30s. This, the Ti4600, if you used to watch the G4 gaming show on cable TV, they had a show on there called, I think it was called Arena, and it would pit two teams of gamers against each other in PC and console games. Whenever they would use the PC platform, they would have Pentium 4 systems, 3.06 gigahertz processors with a Ti4600. I remember because every episode they would advertise the components that were being used as part of a promotion I guess they had with NVIDIA and Intel. And they were using Unreal Tournament 2003. It was a very capable card for that game. This is very similar to that. I mean, they didn't really change the engine much or upgrade the graphics all that extensively compared to that game. So this is a good matchup between hardware and software here. Now let's get into some more strenuous things. Yep, we're playing Far Cry on a Ti4600. The game does support DirectX 8, and if you're using an old GeForce4 MX card, or even a GeForce 2 era card, it does support DirectX 7 on NVIDIA hardware. Unfortunately, not on ATI hardware, sadly. I'm just going to load a random spot here. I don't really have this game memorized as far as what level is what, so I just pick whatever looks good based on a little screenshot there. So we're running at oh, the sound just kicked in. 1024 by 768. It's actually running pretty good. 40, 50 frames right now. Let's wait until we get into a firefight though. Oh, jeez. I don't have any ammo. That's useful. Oh, frame rate in the 20s. You can see it's using it quite extensively. We've got bump mapping right here. We got dynamic shadows cast on the gun. We've got bullets in my face. Delayed explosion. Yeah, the frame rate's not the greatest, but this card, you know, is completely outclassed by this game. So let's actually try dropping the resolution down to 800 by 600. And like almost double the frame rate. Obviously it's a pixelated mess, but at least it runs. So if you had this card back in the day, and couldn't upgrade for whatever reason. I mean, it's playing it. And in case you're curious, this is what water looks like in DirectX 8 mode. Not bad. Ugh. Foliage in the distance could look better. Alright, next we're going to try Doom 3. The game first shown off on a GeForce 3 chip. And we need to turn the settings way down.
Okay, you're all set. Oh yeah, keep in mind.
Yeah. So this is the lowest settings the game will let you run it at, and as you can see here in this somewhat open area, the frame rate's kind of atrocious.
Welcome to the dungeon, brother.
Getting quite a bit of audio distortion for some reason. Oof. It's a really bad frame rate. Still good looking though. Not much to show there because I don't have a really good save file to utilize. But we're going to try Half-Life 2 next. Settings are high with simple reflections, trilinear filtering, and of course no AA or AF. How do I not remember where to go? Ladder blatantly right here. Now this is an older version of Half-Life 2. And as such, it supports older graphics cards and older rendering paths very well. So the performance is actually good. So you can actually play this game with a Ti4600 very smoothly.
Keep going, friend. That station was raided, but there's others up ahead.
So yeah, I think this is a pretty good look at what the Ti4600 could do in games spanning from 2002 when it came out, and even 1999 all the way up to 2004, when I think it's pretty much the last year that this card was really viable for most games. There might be a few exceptions, of course. And you know, it was a very powerful card in 2002. It was just replaced really quickly with much more powerful graphics cards, and software took very little time to take advantage of that. So in the end, the perceived lifespan of the 4600 maybe isn't as much as some other cards, but you know, 2 good years is still pretty decent considering the era that it came out in. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a different look at a graphics card from the perspective of actually playing games on it. And let me know what you think. And until next time, take care.